Welcome everyone to our Monday night shiur. Our shiur is sponsored first by the anonymous sponsor. Hashem should bless him with bracha v'atzlacha yishuah gedolot. Many kids. That was the request. I say it how it is. Baruch Hashem. There are people out there who want to have many kids. And also Le'il Nishmat Tzipora bat Malmal, Zilpa bat Malmal. Slicha, you confused. Gabriel ben Mafrat. And also my grandmother. This Shabbat is her yortzeit. Her name was Tzipora bat Adina. Ruach Hashem tinichem began Eden. Amen. I also want to make a small thing. Whoever is not in the shiur the rest of the weeks, this Thursday night is the Hilula of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim ben Atar. We know Rabbi Chaim ben Atar, he was buried in Har HaZeitim. He was supposed to be Mashiach ben Yosef. Him and the Baal Shem Tov, both of them in that generation was Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. Baal Shem Tov was Nefesh da Atzilut, Or HaChaim was Ruach da Atzilut. Baal Shem Tov said that about the Or HaChaim. So we all know the famous story that Baal Shem Tov wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. He had a Tehillim of David HaMelech, and he threw that Tehillim into the water. So he could make it to Eretz Yisrael, but at the end of the day, he never got over there. And he said, if I would meet the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, it would be the end of the Galut. Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Chaim ben Atar, never had any children. He passed away at the age of 47, very young. The Yom Kippur, before he was passing away, during Ne'ilah is when we closed the Heichal, he said, I'm going to pass away this year. He saw it, it's recorded down. He said, I'm not going to make it this year. Just like the Kohen Gadol, when Shimon HaTzadik, he was 40 years Kohen Gadol. 1 year he told his Talmidim, this year I'm not going to make it. Shimon HaTzadik, the last of the Anshe Knesset Gedolah. The whole war that just happened right now with the Arabs, that was over the Shimon HaTzadik. Arabs call it Sheikh Jarrah. We call it Shimon HaTzadik. So Shimon HaTzadik, for 40 years, he was Kohen Gadol. He went in, he said, Rabbi, how do you know you're going to pass away this year? He says, 40 years I'm Kohen Gadol. Every year I go into the Kodesh HaKodashim. I see someone coming inside with me dressed in white. And I see somebody coming outside with me dressed in white. This year, he said, I saw somebody walk inside with me dressed in black, and he didn't come out with me. I know I'm going to pass away this year. So Rabbi Chaim ben Atar, similarly, he said on the Yom Kippur, and the Eilah of that year, Gabriel, he said, I'm going to pass away this year, lo aleinu, and lo ala klal Yisrael, and he passed away. Why do I mention Rabbi Chaim ben Atar? All the power to have children, he put in his book. I remember going not as a kid, but as a teenager to the square. You know square, the new square? You guys, I don't think you guys have been there. You guys have been there? You've been? Oh, yeah, you guys have been there. So I was there for Shabbos. Laman Achai, the yeshiva that I teach, they go there every year. Parashat Acharei Mot Kedoshim. Every year they go there. Take the kids over there. I went 1 year. I was a teacher, one of my first years. I went over there. If you look at their library, there's no commentaries in the Torah over there. Only one. Or HaChaim HaKadosh. The whole thing is Or HaChaims, Or HaChaims, Or HaChaims, Or HaChaims. Why? Baal Shem Tov said that he was Mashiach ben Yosef. He was Ruach da Atzilut. We're going to learn him. There is another Sigula. This is from Rabbi Avram Aronovich. He was a big tzaddik. Rabbi Avram Aronovich. He was one of the Lamed Vav Tzaddikim. He said, whoever learns the book of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh is a sigula to have children. You want to have kids? You don't need to go to Beit Kvarot, Kivrei Tzaddikim. Rabbi Avram Aronovich said, you want to have tzaddikim. Why? All the power to have children he put inside this book. He didn't have kids himself. But all the power that he had to have kids, he put in his book Or HaChaim HaKadosh. That's why he's named his book Chaim. What is Chaim? Life. 3 people are considered dead. A person who has no children, a person who is blind, and a person who is poor. Lo aleinu.
Is there an English version of that?
Huh? Or yes, Art Scroll. Look at the great. I didn't mention Zerah Shimshon. I'm talking about Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Now you're talking about Zerah Shimshon. Rabbi, come on. I know you're from Kew Gardens. You like Zerah Shimshon, but we're in Garden Hills over here. We're with the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. But yeah, Or HaChaim HaKadosh. Or HaChaim. His Art Scroll translated the book. They translated it. And anyone could go to Gift World over here. They could buy themselves a copy of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. It's one of the greatest Sefarim. His Hilulah is this Thursday night. We're going to be here for Mishnayot. So with the Mishnayot, we're going to do a nice Hilulah for him. We'll do Mishnayot first, then we're going to go to the Hilulah. Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach. Whoever's going to join in the Hilulah, it's a Sigula. Every year we do the Hilulah, by the way. Thursday night. Yeah. Mishmar. It's on Mishmar. Or no, that's Orach Chaim. That's Orach Chaim. Easily to confuse. Now, tonight is the Hilulah of no other than the Balaturim. Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Rabbi Asher. Today is his Hilulah. He was the son of the Rosh. The Arba Turim, you guys know from, you guys come to the Bet HaKnesset on Shabbat, I talked about him a lot. The Rabbi Yaakov ben Rabbi Asher, he was the son of the Rosh. He wrote a book called the Arba Turim. It was the pretext, the first book of the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch based his Torah on the Arba Turim. Who was the Arba Turim? Why did he write it? Real quick. When the Rambam wrote his book, the Mishnah Torah, it took him 10 years to write the Mishnah Torah. Now, just to give you, know what 10 years is? That's a nice chunk of your life. 10 years. When the Rambam wrote the Mishnah Torah, that night when he finished it, he saw his father, Rabbi Maimon, in a dream, and with him was another man, and he said it was Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu told the Rambam, Yishar Koach, good for you. You did something that no other human being succeeded. On this day, he said, Mi Moshe ad Moshe, Lokam ke Moshe. Look at the Mishnah, look at the Gemara. You're not going to find one rabbi that's name is Moshe. Open up the Mishnayot. All the Tanaim, Amorim, not one of them's name is Moshe. The first rabbi we see after Moshe Rabbeinu with the name Moshe is no other than he's much after, but Moshe ben Maimon, the Rambam, but you could say similarly from Rambam to Rav Moshe Feinstein, there was nobody like Moshe too. Moshe Kordaver, yeah, but in halacha. It's true, there were many, Rav Sofer and Moshe Sofer, there were many big tzaddikim. Moshe Al-Shich, Nachon.
Why did you bring up these three people like that?
So why did I bring those three people, that whoever doesn't have these three things that consider like they passed away, a person has to understand that their job in this world, and I tell this to people, and they laugh at me because I think I'm the only one who says this, more important than learning Torah in this generation, more important than tzedakot and everything, is to bring children to this world. That's the most important thing in this generation. Why? I'll tell you why. I'm not saying this out of my head. The Gemara asks a question. It's also in Tana Dabe Eliyahu. How did the Jews leave Egypt out of 400 years, 210 years?
Still babies.
And the Tana Dabe Eliyahu, the Gemara says point blank, they had a lot of babies. If we would have the same Yeludah as the Arabs, Mashiach would have came 100 years ago. But to our, you understand? To our thing, they don't have Cherem Rabbeinu Gershom. You understand? But at the same time, we have to understand it. One thing I do, I teach Chatanim. Sometimes by force. It's not something that I run after. And when I teach Chatanim, people who are about to get married, what's the first thing they ask me or my wife? When can I take birth control? Do I have an idea? You're not even married yet. You already want to take birth control? For the love of God. And guys and girls. I mean, girls don't ask me, ask my wife. And I'm so perplexed by the fact because, for me, I daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I daven to Hashem that Hashem should be marchiv my givulot, should have more kids. You understand? I don't want to stop because I know having children is like Shacharit, Mincha, Aravit of the whole year, plus Pesach, plus Shavuot, plus Sukkot. The moment you're with your wife, you're doing such a zivug. So the Or HaChaim didn't have it. That's why I brought this up. The Or HaChaim didn't have it. But he put all that power, imagine that tzaddik puts that power inside his book of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. That's why tzaddikim, and especially Hasidim, they try to learn his book, Or HaChaim HaKadosh, every Shabbat. Every single Shabbat. Now back to what we were saying before. Rabbeinu Yaakov Balaturim. He wrote the small history point. Unfortunately, in yeshivot today, they don't teach Jewish history. And when those Palestinians and all their klipot, when they wake up and they say, you Jews don't have Eretz Yisrael, it's not yours, this and that, the regular Jew doesn't know what to answer back. If he only knew Chamisha Chumshei Torah, he could have wiped these guys out of the into the toilet and flush it. But they don't know even Chamisha Chumshei Torah, but basic history, basic Nevi'im, basic nothing. The reason is because we don't teach them. We don't teach them. History is a very dry subject. I always found it fascinating. That's why you see different Shorshe Nishamot, different sources of Nishamot. You understand? You can. Whatever one somebody likes here, whoever likes chocolate doesn't like vanilla. Whoever likes vanilla doesn't like cookie dough. Cookie dough doesn't like this. Everyone is different. However, we have an obligation to teach Jewish history, because without Jewish history, as the pasuk says, Zechor Yamot Olam, remember the days of old. Sha'al avicha veyagetcha zekenecha veyomru lach. We don't need to know Turkish history. We don't need to know about Suleiman the Magnificent. It's a beautiful story, but it's shtuyot. You understand? It's shtuyot. You gotta know your history. Why? Yemesh shenotecha 70 shana. If you live to the age of 70, you're good. Ve'im bigvurot 80 shana. Ve'rachavam amal ve'aven, says David HaMelech. If you get to 80, you got to a good age. If you get above 80, you know what more than 80 means?
Yeah.
You already have no taste to life. How many times do you get to the people above the age of 80, be like, what's my taste in life? Now look at this. Person gets to the age of 20. He thinks he's going to grab the world. 20 plus 20 plus 20, you're already age 60. What do you have at 60 already? What can you accomplish already? But you think, that's why a kid is born, how is he born? With his hands clenched tight. Why? He's going to grab the whole world. He passes away with his hands open. A person passes away, his hands, why? What did you already reach? En adam met v'chatzi ta'avato beyado. I always tell this to kids in my class. I say, you guys want to have beautiful watches, Rolex, Schmolex, beautiful cars. I said, you know what it is to have a child? Do you know what it is to have a wife? Do you know what it is to have Shalom Bait? Shalom Bait? Shalom Bait doesn't come easy. Shalom Bait comes with work. Huh? Bait does that have? Rabbi Yosef lo kara li ishto. Ishti, what did he call his wife? Beti. You have to go to a guy who's married 30, 40 years. You have to say, give me a beracha. And the girls have to go to a woman who's married 30, 40 years and say, give me a beracha. What do you think, this comes easy? It comes with intense work. A work of character. Now let's look at the parasha. I'm going to tell you something crazy about this week's parasha. This whole parasha is based on Billam Harasha breaking the Jewish home. That's all it is. Bil'am Harasha with Balak. Al tikre Balak ela tikare black. His whole job this week's parasha is to break the Jewish home. And I'll tell you why. Bil'am Harasha starts to give blessings. Nachon o lo? Toda. I like that. He's getting ready for Eretz Yisrael. Bil'am Harasha, he gets to, and he starts to bless. And did you guys read the blessings in the parasha? It's some major stuff over there. And not only that, it's some major prophecies. Bil'am Harasha is the first to prophesize about Mashiach. The first. Umachatz pa'ate Moab v'karkar kol bnei Shet. Adam had 3 kids. Hevel, Cain, Hevel, and Sheth, right? You know what Bil'am says? There will be a man that will break all the skulls of the sons of Sheth. Cain and Hevel, they were done, right? All of Cain's descendants went in the flood. Hevel was killed. So who are we descendants of? Sheth. Bil'am says there will be a man that will break the skulls. Karkar kol bnei Sheth. The Ari says that's the Mashiach Tzidkenu. Moshe didn't prophesize about Mashiach. Bil'am Harasha at that time, what does he call himself? Yodeh Da'at Elyon. He saw Da'at, you know what Da'at Elyon is? No man has reached Da'at Elyon. Bil'am saw Da'at Elyon and he said, I see Mashiach. He will destroy Moab, that's David HaMelech, and destroy Sheth. That means Bil'am was a prophet.
He saw that with the Tumah.
He saw that at that moment through Kedusha. Through Kedusha. In fact, the Zohar HaKadosh says something so... We have to cry. You know, if a goy could reach such a level, we as Jewish people, what are we? There's a story of Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. It says the story like this. If a goy, by dipping in a mikveh, could turn into a Jew, what happens when a Jew dips in a mikveh? We know what our potential is. People are looking for sigulot, just for a small side point. Rabotai, if you open up the Sefer, and you learn, and you daven, and you pray to Hashem, you think Hashem is not going to answer you? Why doesn't He answer you? When you go to work out, what's the biggest problem, Ariel? You're not? You're not consistent. Motivation is kind of consistent. As soon as you can be motivated, you're just not consistent. You can't make it. You're not consistent, you're not going to make it. If you daven for one thing, like a nutnik to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, you daven to Him all. You know why? Because you're still not consistent enough. If you're going to daven and daven and daven and daven to Hashem, you're going to make it. Look at Bil'am HaRasha. How did he get his nibu'ah? By being with a donkey. That happens when we don't do pidyon pedarach amor. It goes to the klipa. And you know what? He was consistent. Yes, you're right. He was consistent to being with his donkey. And I'll tell you why. When he was talking to his donkey, she donkey, he sees the donkey, and the donkey sees the mule, the female. She sees the angel. Bil'am starts to smack her. 3 times he smacks her. So she tells him, "Aviyiftach Hashem et pi ha'aton." And he says, "Lama ze ikitani shalosh regalim." Just that sentence is a shiur, by the way. Shalosh regalim. Just that sentence is a shiur. Okay, let's pass that for a sec. So he says to her, it's like it was something normal for him to see a donkey speak. He says, because you swayed from the derech, you went more from the derech. So he says to him, aren't I your donkey? What did she mean by? What are you in my head over here? Is a lady, that's why. What did she mean by that? So Rashi explains, says, aren't I the donkey that helped you in the day and helped and served you in the night?
We're a couple.
Yeah, we're a couple. I'm your wife. Be'emet. And he tells her back, no, you're just there, once a while, when I decide to turn into Uzbek. Then I'm, regular than that, I'm, I don't know, Arabi. I don't know what they do, but who knows. So she tells him, אני אתונך שרכבת עליי מאודך עד היום הזה. You know what she meant when she said that? I'm your donkey that you visit 3 times a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. When the Ziknei Moab heard what she said, what does it say in the Pasuk? They disappeared. Who keeps on going with him? Ziknei Midian. The Moabites. Where do they come from, Moab? From a father and a daughter. When they heard that was Bil'am, they said, we can't deal with this guy. We're done with him. They got up and they left. Goyim of back in the day. What did Bil'am continue doing? He kept on going. Now I'm going to answer your question. When Bil'am went, every time he goes and says a prophecy, he says to Bil'am, to Balak, so said to me God, veko tedaber, and so you shall say. What word he uses, and so you shall say? The letters Chaf, Hey. You guys know that there was a very big Mikubal, Tzaddik Yesod Olam, Rabbeinu Shalom Mizrahi Didi Asher Abi, the Rashash HaKadosh. When he used to reach this passage in the Zohar HaKadosh, veko tedaber, in Parashat Bil'am, he used to cry. Who could have a zechut, like Bil'am HaRasha, that Ko, the Shekhinah, God's divine presence, should speak from his throne? Who could have the zechut that the Shekhinah, we, We are a Jewish people with Brit Milahs, with Torah, with mitzvot, u'ma'asim tovim. We don't have the zechut that the Shekhinah shall speak from our throat. And this Rasha who slept with his female donkey 3 times a day, 7 days a week, the whole year, he had the zechut that the Shekhinah should speak from his throat. The Ari asks, why? Why did that generation? Why did that? Can I tell you something crazy? All this is happening, the Jews don't know that it's happening. How could they? This was all happening behind the scenes. And God tells Moshe as it's happening, write it down. And one of the 10 remembrances that we have to remember every day, remember what Balak and Bil'am did to you. Leman dat tzidkot Hashem. Every day you have to remember 10 things. Yetziat Mitzrayim, Hashabat, Haman, Maaseh Amalek HaRasha. What God did to Miriam, Balak, the Egel HaZahav, the Yerushalayim. I said that Yerushalayim will be rebuilt. And God is the one that gives you chayil. 10 remembrances. One of them is what? Balak and Bil'am. Every day you have to remember that. And if I could just have a moment to get into the deep point over here. What was the souls of Balak and Bil'am? You know what it's connected to? Amalek, true. But it's connected before that to Lavan Arami. Remember when Lavan saw Rachel on the camels? She was sitting on Terafim. And Rachel told Lavan, her father, I cannot get up. Derech Nashim Li. She lied. To save Yaakov from the Terafim. Those Terafim. You know Lavan? You know who Lavan is? How do you spell Lavan? Lamed, Bet, Nun. Lamed is what? Lavan. Bet is Bil'am. And third is Naval. Who's Naval? Bil'am's Gilgul. He was a Jew. Bil'am came back as a Jew. Naval, yeah. Navala Carmeli. Yeah, Abigail's ex-husband, let's call them. But first, Bil'am had to come back in a rock, in a wood. If you make averot, says the Ari, I have the book over here, Sefer Gilgulim. Take my word for it. If the Ari says if a person does a lot of averot with his mouth, talks in the Bet HaKnesset, especially during Chazara and during Kriyat Torah, and a person speaks Lashon Hara, Motzi Shem Ra, Sheker, he comes back in an inanimate object, in the Even.
2x4.
Less. 2x4 is good. That's a condo. That's in the Trump Tower condo. 2x4. That's. But at the same time, Bil'am came back as a Jew. And who was Bil'am's teacher? You know who Bil'am's teachers were? Azai and Azael.
Angels?
Those two angels.
Fallen angels?
Yeah, the fallen angels. Azav and Azael. Those were his teachers. Yeah, exactly.
They were alive still?
They were alive. Azav and Azael. And the Ari explains why Azav and Azael were his teachers. And Azav and Azael, what was their main focus in life?
Enjoyment.
To destroy Adam. They told Hashem, Ma enosh ki techashvenu. Who is man? Why should you even think of him? They were the fallen angels. Who was the man? Hanak sheba anakim, Moshe. Bil'am tried to destroy Moshe. And Azav and Azael were Bil'am's teachers. This whole parasha that we're talking about right now, the Ari HaKadosh once fell asleep on Shabbat, and while he was sleeping, Rabbi Avraham Halevi Beruchim saw him talking in his sleep. He asked him, Rabbi, when he woke up, what were you saying? He says, I was learning in the Zohar Harakia. 80 years, if I would tell you right now, from today, 80 years I would tell what the donkey said to Bil'am, it wouldn't be enough. There was once a teacher in school. He had one kid, it was a bit... and malasot. So one time the Rebbe asked the student, says to him, you know the answer to the kushiyah? 700 times I'm telling you. You're afraid I said 400 times. You had olam haba and 400 years of life. I'm telling you 700 times already. Do you know the answer to the kushiyah? So he tells him some stupid answer. And he tells him, yeah, that's what it says in the pasuk. And God opened up the mouth of the donkey. So the student was sharp when he wants to be. And he answered that. And that's what he said to Billam. He tells back to the teacher. When a Jew wants to be sharp, he's sharp. It takes him 2 seconds. When he... and the angels have come. Both Michael and Gabriel just came from the Gan Eden, Elyon. So when a Jew wants to be sharp, he knows what to say right away. But if he wants to be, then nothing is going to help him. I'm going to tell you a different secret over here. Bil'am, this whole week's parasha, tried to teach us one thing. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says that of all Bil'am's blessings, all of them turned out to be curses. Sanhedrin, Gemara Sanhedrin. Except for one. Can anybody tell me what was that one blessing that came out to be a blessing? That one prophecy that came out to be a blessing? You have no idea. Matovu o alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha. Anyone who went to Ashkenazi yeshiva knows Ashkenazim start their tefillah. Matovu o alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. I said it good? You have no idea what in the world I just said. That's how they started tefillah. How do I know? My son comes home, he has a sidur. Matovu o alecha Yaakov. So the tefillah, why they started with this, the Gemara Sanhedrin says, out of all the blessings of Bil'am, only one came out to be a true blessing. What was that blessing? You know what it was? In the desert, when they traveled, Rashi says, the Jews had a minhag. When they used to pitch their tents or their huts, when they used to make their huts, every hut was... Every window. They were corresponding, they were keneged, opposite each one's opening, everyone's door. It means you would never know when this one's wife went to the mikveh, what this one was doing.
Your front door is his backyard.
Your front door was his back door.
Backyard.
You didn't have the idea. From here we get the halakha, one of the sources, that a person should never tell, when you get married, a woman should never tell anyone when she's going to the mikveh.
Ainara? Or not because I have...
Pritzut. It's pritzut. Even your mother-in-law shouldn't know when, especially your mother-in-law, when you're going to the mikveh. Nobody's allowed to know. It's davar kadosh.
If they ask, are you allowed to lie?
Yes, you must lie. In fact, the Gemara says a question. If a woman tells her she's supposed to go to the mikveh tonight, then her mother-in-law says, "Oh, when are you going to the mikveh?" She says, "Oh, I'm still tameh." Then that night she comes home from the mikveh. Your husband says, "What are you talking about? You just said to my mom that you're tameh." She has a good excuse. She says, "I was trying to keep a tzniut inside the house." When Bil'am saw Matovu o alecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael, what was his next advice to Balak?
Break it.
Arayot. Bil'am knew what was the secret to Klal Yisrael? Taharat HaMishpacha. Once Taharat HaMishpacha goes, Klal Yisrael goes to Timayon. So what was Bil'am's next advice? Send the Goyot. Send the Goyot. The Zohar HaKadosh says there is no avera worse than putting your Brit Milah b'makom hatumah. So Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya asks a question: how do you put your Brit Milah b'makom hatumah? When does Avraham Avinu not save you? When does he not save you? Be'emet. Rabbi Yehuda Ftaya has a chidush. He says if a person chas shalom does the avera, he wastes. You guys know what I'm talking about? There's still a chance for Avraham Avinu to save you. But if you go with a Goya, when you do the Avera of Nida, Shivcha, Goya, Vezona, 4 Averot in one, the Beit Din of which, let's see who knows, which Beit Din made this takana, which Beit Din, which Sanhedrin, I'll give you King David made the takana of Yechud. After, which you're getting closer. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with one of the holidays of the Jewish people.
Mordechai, yeah.
What was their Beit Din called? Chashmonaim. The Hasmoneans. The Maccabim. The Hashmonaim were the ones who said, anyone who's with a Goya over al 4 Isurei Doraita. Nida, Shivha, Goya, Ve, Zona. In this week's parasha, we see a story. Bless you. how a Nasi of Kal, you know what a Nasi is? You think they chose Nisim out of political, or another Naftali Bennett? Lo aleinu. You know who this Nasi was? If 1,000,000 Rav Ovadias with Rav Chaim Kanievskis and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's and every one of them will not reach to the level of a Nasi of Klal Yisrael in the Midbar. 1,000,000 of them.
And they're not small people.
I said the biggest. Let's add the Ari in there with the Ben Ish Hai and the Rashash. With the Rambam. Just for good measure.
What made them so different?
They saw God.
The-
they witnessed.
Very unfathomable, you know.
They witnessed.
Imagine you live every day and your parnasa is by your door. Just the thought of that should change you. Just it's like it's direct deposit, but this is not direct deposit from Joe Biden. This is direct deposit from God Himself. Yes, it changed the ability of those people. These people learned Torah from the greatest of prophets. Do you know what it means to learn from Moshe Rabbeinu?
From the source.
I sometimes think to myself sometimes when I walk, I say, am I waiting for Mashiach, or I would ask Hashem to go back in time to learn from Moshe Rabbeinu? Sometimes I have this thought inside my head. Is it better to learn from Mashiach? Or, I don't know. Maybe I would want to go back to learn from Moshe. He saw God. Not saw, but he fathomed God in a way no one else could fathom Him. Imagine learning from and seeing Aaron. The first Kohen Gadol, seeing the earth open up and swallow Korach. I mean, you would have to be on a crazy level. Just the thought of it makes me go crazy. And this guy takes this Midianite to Moshe and says to him, Muteret, look how the Jew goes. Is she? He doesn't go right or do the Avera. He asks him, is she mutar or she's asur? What does Moshe say? Asur! Who allowed your wife? She's a Midianite. At that moment, Moshe could have just said, this was before the Torah. He could have said that you convert her. When you're in that moment, Hashem wanted to give the bracha to Pinchas. Who was the Gilgul of Pinchas? Yosef HaTzadik himself. The Ari says in Shara Gilgulim, that's why, just like Yosef defeated his Yetzer Hara with the wife of Potiphar, so too he was able to defeat Kozbi Batsur, who came to destroy Moshe Rabbeinu. Gilgul with Gilgul. She comes to him, and you know what the Gemara says? Not the Gemara, the Zohar says? And the Ari brings down in Sefer HaGilgulim. He says, Hashem put supernatural power into Zimri. He was with her. How many soldiers came with Esav? 400 times.
You can't even fathom that. How's that possible?
It's not even possible. Only in that generation such a thing could be possible.
So you said,
No, he was not Sultan Suleiman. Relax yourself.
you said Hashem wanted to get Pinchas the bracha?
Yes. He wanted to turn Pinchas into a Kohen.
Hashem wanted that?
Hashem, you were going into a very deep thing over here, but Pinchas, it was waiting for him from 6 days of creation to turn into a Kohen. This was the conduit at that moment. This was the derech, could have come a different derech. But at this moment, this was the derech. Once the avon was already happening, Moshe didn't have the ability to say, Kana'in pog'in. But that means the mitzvah is, very soon Mashiach is coming, we all feel it.
Amen.
If we see a Jew being with a Goya in a club or something, going to live with her, it's a mitzvah for every single Jew, without edim, without anything, to take the, how do you call it? The mechanic. He gotta take the thing and he could shoot him to death at that moment. I said when Mashiach comes.
Today you don't go to jail.
Exactly. You don't go to
You'll come out.
Wait, if
Yellow pink ticket.
you got a pink ticket, yeah.
Show up with my shit.
It's a mitzvah. Why? Not because you hate goyim. Because you just have a different job in this world. And a goy has a different job in this world. If you open up the book of Zechariah, if you look at the Chagai Malachi, the prophets, the goyim have a place in the time of Mashiach.
Not just with you.
Not just us. Not just us. They're also going to live in Jerusalem. It's going to be only Jews in the... you know what's going to be over there? Only Jews in the world. It's going to be... we don't even want to know what's going to be. At the same time, how come Moshe couldn't say it? Kanaim pogin bo. How come he couldn't say it? Do you know who Cosby was? The daughter of Balak. You know who Balak was? The son of Yitro.
What?
Who's Yitro?
For real?
The father of Moshe. So who's Cosby?
Sister.
His niece. Moshe's niece.
Whoa.
Whoa! That's why you come to this shiur to hear a chiddush.
I will see.
See, I got him into a
Then
chiddush.
they said initially to be with
You-
Moshe.
Vayar Balak ben Tzipor.
Yeah.
Tzipor is Yitro. Also Mashiach. Tzipor is Yitro. What was Tzipor's daughter's name? What is the Yitro's daughter's name? Tzipora. Why did he call her Tzipora? That was his avodah zarah. He called his daughter after avodah zarah. That's why Yitro also forced Moshe to call his son Gershom. What's Gershom mean? Kagoy ger, ligaresh. Your first son is to avodah zarah, Yitro said.
He made a deal with him.
Who came to kill Cosby and Zimri? Pinchas. The Ari says Pinchas' neshama was combined of two souls, Yitro's and Yosef's. Why? Rashi says. What does Rashi say? Hareita ben Putize. All the Shvatim was. You see this Ben Puti? Suddenly he's a tzad. What does Ben Puti mean? Rashi says two pirushim. One, Ben Puti shepitpem agalim la'avodah zarah. He made agalim to avodah zarah. Who made? Yitro. Yitro, because Pinchas's grandfather is who? Yitro. Elazar married his uncle's the sister-in-law, which is Yitro's daughter. Elazar and Moshe were what?
Bojaz.
Were Bojaz.
That I knew.
And Pinchas is also the nitzotz of Yosef. So what is the second pirush in Rashi? Shepit pet Yitzro. That he destroyed his Yetzirah. How do these two pirushim make sense? Only in Kabbalah. Because on one hand he was Yitro, and on the other hand he was who? Yosef. And who does he come to fight? Cosby and Zimri. Who's Cosby? Yitro's granddaughter.
That's his niece. Then. I mean, his wife's niece.
Exactly. And that's Pinchas's cousin.
Yeah.
That's Pinchas's cousin. Who is Goliath? Goliath. David's cousin.
Yeah. That we know.
Now you know this too. And it's David's cousin. They were cousins. How Orpah's son is Goliath. Ruth's great-grandson is David. Sisters. Habibi, it's all in the family. Everything is in the family, Rebbe. Huh?
Baby Schnitzel.
Now let's... When Pinchas killed Zimri and Cosby, it says he went inside a kuba. What's kuba? What's kuba? You should say a tent, right? But it says the word kuba. Kuba is kuba shel zonot. The kuf and bet of kuba is the kuf of bet in Balak. It's the kuf of bet in Balak. At that moment when he killed Zimri, he fixed the bet in the kuf of Balak. He fixed Balak. And what came out of Balak afterwards? Ruth HaMoaviyah and David HaMelech. So if it wasn't for Pinchas that would have come inside and at the moment that they're in the thing and knocked them out of the kuba, who wouldn't have come out? David HaMelech, which is Mashiach Tzidkenu. Do you understand how the whole Torah connects? I'm going to end. I didn't get even to the Balaturim because it's already late. I'm going to end with a Navi. The Navi in Zechariah says, chapter 13, I believe. Everyone should read a Navi. Every day, take upon yourself, read 2 chapters of the Navi. You must. You cannot take the whole Torah and put it on the side. A kritmach, a guy who bows down to the cross. He knows Isaiah better than you. How? Come on. Rabbi said we have to. When the kedusha doesn't take it, then the klipa comes and take it. The prophet Zachariah, which was the last three prophets, we had last three prophets. Remember this: Chagai, Zachariah, and Malachi. Thank you very much. Just as a side point, what was the last prophecy Malachi had? Hine anochi sholech lachem et Eliyahu Hanavi. That's the last prophecy we ever had. We're coming back, and we're coming back strong. Eliyahu Hanavi is on his way. We're waiting for him. Hey, by the way, he can't come on a Friday or a Saturday night. Remember that. The Gemara in Eruvin says he's not coming on a Friday or a Saturday night. Why? We're preparing for Shabbos. You think so? Kitvarecha. Anywho, so Zachariah says a prophecy, in the future Mashiach ben Yosef will die. Zachariah says. And when they will die, the Jews will cry over the two crowns. What are the two crowns? Keter David, Keter Melucha, and Keter Keuna. We have Keter Torah. If we wouldn't have Keter Torah, we wouldn't be here today. It's the only thing that's keeping us alive. We're missing two Ketarim, two crowns. Keter Melucha and Keter Keuna. We're losing the kingship and we're losing the Kohenship, the priesthood. Why are we going to cry? Because until we don't ask for them, we're not going to get it. Every person should ask in his tefillah that Hashem should return all three Ketarim. Keter Torah, Keter Keuna, and Keter Melucha. Because until these three Ketarim will not come back to Klal Yisrael, we will never be as we once were, and even greater. So I give a bracha to everyone over here, and I hope you guys also give me the bracha. We should be zocheh lebiat Mashiach tzidkenu, lekdushat Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, lekdushat Shalom Bayit, לברכה ולהצלחה, זיווגים הגונים, תורה, מצוות, מעשים טובים, השם יזכנו להתקדש בקדושת הברית, כמו שפנחס התקנא בקדושת הברית, ככה אנחנו נתקנא בקדושת הברית, והשם יקדש אותנו בכל הישועות, בכל ההצלחות, ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנן הקשיא אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, הבנו את הזמן צדקו, יגדיל